how big it is on a scale. Like, it's okay, here's a negative mention, or someone's angry with me on Twitter. The number one reason why agencies were starting to bring us in, and why many of the biggest corporations in the world use us today, is there's so much noise.
How are you? Welcome to the Entrepreneur Experiment podcast with me, Gary Fox. Today, my guest is Paul Quigley, the founder of Newswhip. Today, we're going to learn how to build a massive media brand. Here's my chat with Paul. Paul, welcome to the pod.
Thank you, Gary.
In our brand new home.
It's beautiful. And the peace and tranquility in this room is just amazing.
Me and you did a little meditation session just before this. Found our center.
Yeah, I feel at peace here.
It's beautiful. We're in a brand new, it's almost like a TV studio, so it's very cool. Welcome to the pod. It's great to have you on.
Thank you, Gary. It's a real pleasure.
You're a very famous name in the Irish startup scene.
That's incredible to hear, but thank you. Yeah.
You're one of the OGs of the Irish. We were just chatting about it outside there. You started back 2010, 2011?
Yeah, we did start a long time ago, and I think when we started, there was a lot of really good startups getting going in Ireland. Like Intercom would have been just a little bit ahead of us. Contemporary of ours getting going, and the same NDRC Launchpad would have been Boxever. So really good companies that achieve big outcomes or are still building their empires.
Timing's funny, isn't it? Like timing, I always think, I equate everything to sport, and generally Man United. When you look at like the United team, like all that crop that came together, and business is a bit like that too. You can be lucky with who you're surrounded with at a certain time. So you came through at a really pedigree time. Do you think that plays an outcome on your success?
I think it's very good to have a good peer group always. And as you were asking the question, I was thinking, what was it about that time? And this is around 2011, 2012, it's post-crash. So maybe a lot of people couldn't get the normal good jobs and they weren't available. The big wave of the companies the IDA brought in wasn't yet generating that massive level of employment that it turned into, right? Like your Google's, Facebook probably wasn't there yet, or Meta, Workday, all those things. So it's great then because people maybe didn't have as many other options and started businesses instead. And that can be a really good thing.
That's really interesting actually, because I think that now. I think we're having that time right now again. Because I think things are a little bit crap, being honest. Things are a little bit grim. But I think this is the start of something. Because I think after COVID, the world has changed fundamentally. I think if you don't see that now, you're dreaming. The world has fundamentally changed. And I think we're going to see a whole wave of new startups. And I mean new is in a different approach. The hybrid approach, beyond borders. They're not going to be linked to going, oh, we're based in Dublin. Mm-hmm. That'll be like, cool, that's where some of our staff are. Some are in Galway, Cork, Argentina, America. I think there's going to be a whole different wave. And we talked about AI just outside, how we're both using it in very, very different ways. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. I actually hadn't drawn that parallel to then to now. So it's interesting that 2011, 2012 kind of mirrors now, I think. Yeah. I think there's been, there's a little unsettling in the economy recently, and especially in the US. People are reevaluating, and post-COVID, you're right, people are evaluating as well, especially if they're being hauled back into the office, but they have an itch they'd like to scratch as a business idea, and maybe there's the confidence there to do it and get in a conversation with ChatGPT and start figuring out what your marketing strategy should be, and suddenly you're ready to go. It's true. Like, it's funny. Like, it's come on so much, and it's like I use it now as like not an assistant, it's kind of downplayed, but like a second brain going, hey, let's whiteboard this out. Like, it's like having a little team around you to kind of like spitball ideas. Like, that in itself is powerful. That can be, I always say, ChatGPT solves the blank page problem for me. Mm-hmm. If I'm just going, what marketing strategy should I do next year to grow the pod beyond Ireland? I literally did that the other day, and it's like, and I said, right, here's the 3 examples I want you to follow. And they're like, no problem. Here's all their campaigns. Here's what they do. And I was like, sweet. It's like having a marketing agency on tap. It's incredible. It's really moving very fast, and in our line of work, we think it's going to become very, very central, and we're pretty committed to, we've already shipped quite a bit there, and we're committed to shipping a lot more and a lot more AI integration into our platform. It is the way. How has that evolved for you? Like, when did you start seeing kind of AI and machine learning become to the fore of your business, or has it always been there? So I need to go back in time a little bit, right? So when we first started doing machine learning. So very briefly, what Newswhip does is we track in real time engagement with all of the world's news and social media content. That means new tweets, new news article on the Irish Times, new TikTok. And what our technology is doing is ingesting all of that and tracking what's getting engagement, what's going viral. And many years ago, what we saw was when something kind of started going viral on Facebook, you could start projecting and how big it was going to become. So using machine learning to test different models of, and then testing their accuracy, and using machine learning to make those models smarter against themselves as well. So this wasn't the kind of natural language processing or LLM. This is more mathematical machine learning. So it's a bit more spreadsheet as the analogy. And we're very early in that. So in a sense, in the space of media monitoring and social listening, we're using it in a different way to everyone else. What others will be doing is more natural language processing, and this is entity extraction. If people are talking about Coke, then this is a fizzy drink story, or it's a beverage story. And LLMs have kind of brought that NLP power to everyone with a whole lot more besides. So we're now marrying together all of what we've got on being very good at pulling in everything very quickly and separating the signal from noise and having models around that with interpretation of that and getting to the so what and the insights around what's going on. So we can, if you're working in a reputation team at MasterCard and you're worried about a data breach or something, or if you're working in the New York Times and you want to know what are the big themes on the campaign trail today, that we can give you some very good answers to that very quickly. Combining all of that underlying base layer of good, very recent data and separating which are the important stories, and then an interpretative layer of natural language and LLM in some cases on top of that.
I think that's why I was so excited to talk to you today. Like, I feel like there's certain businesses that have a time, and I feel like you're coming into this unbelievably powerful time because curation is becoming so powerful, because trust is eroded so much from all the traditional places you'd normally trust. Traditional media has never had a lower reputation ranking. So now you're even searching online going, right, what's real?
Yeah.
And I actually find myself doing that every day. Every time a story breaks now, I'm like, okay, look at it there, but then look at it 2 or 3 other places and kind of collate that yourself to almost become like but a lot of people don't do that, right? They kind of take it as a face value. So like what you do, especially for companies where it can't be a little bit off, is invaluable.
Going green, becoming more sustainable, it's everywhere, right? Everyone wants to be greener and do their bit to help. But sometimes, for your business, there are more important things to do. It's hard to find the time. Well, take it out of your hands, because it's all in a day's work for your local enterprise office. They have the time and the experts to sort it for you. And the best bit is, it'll help your business, save you time, money, and energy. Perfect, right? The Green for Business audit will assess your business and tell you where you can make changes, and the new energy efficiency grant will help you pay for those changes. And your local enterprise office will sort the whole process for you. Go to www.allinadayswork.ie/green, fill out the form that takes less than 2 minutes, and your local enterprise office will take it from there. Going green? It's all in a day's work for your local enterprise office. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to share a game changer for your business, Azure Communications. When it comes to print and marketing solutions, these folks, led by CEO Jenny Johnston, are the real deal. Whether you need an eye-catching brochure, sleek business cards, or a full-blown digital campaign, Azure Communications has you covered. They're not just about high-quality prints or digital campaigns, they're also about delivering great results. And here's the best part. Just for listeners of the Entrepreneur Experiment, you can get 20% off your first order. Just give them a call or go online and use the code VOX20. With personalized service and fast turnaround times, Azure Communications will help you make the impact your business deserves. Trust me, when it comes to making your brand stand out, Azure Communications is the provider of choice. Check them out at azurecom.ie, use code VOX20 and elevate your marketing game today. Many of you listening to the pod are business owners and savvy investors, but have you been introduced to peer-to-peer lending? Peer-to-peer lending is the practice of lending money directly to other individuals or businesses without the need for a traditional intermediary like a bank. Property Bridges offers you the opportunity to lend directly to experienced home builders across Ireland through their innovative online investment platform. Investors earn returns of up to 9% per annum, and your money is fully secured against property. To learn more, visit propertybridges.com. Property Bridges is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Yeah, it's what we're doing really is we aren't the arbiters of truth, and it's really hard to figure out sometimes what's true and what's false. And it takes shoe leather, and it takes journalists asking people questions. Unless there's really well structured data available, it's very hard to for a computer to do that. What we can do, thanks to all the data we get, is show what's spreading, what's getting engagement. And in the world of finding the truth, that means fact checkers around the world who use our platform can see which claims are going viral, and if they're, for example, being paid by Meta to keep Facebook safe ahead of an election in Indonesia or Malaysia, and they see some kind of false story about maybe a minority ethnic group starting to go viral, they're able to see that with our platform, and they're able to fact check it and potentially flag it for Meta to take down or limit the amount of engagement that it's going to get, or the amount of spread it's going to get.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a very interesting time to be very good at separating the signal from the noise, but actually figuring out what's true. I've got, it gets harder and harder. And one of our investors is the Associated Press.
Oh, wow, okay.
And there's an interesting historical precedence there for where we are today. So the AP was founded during the, the Spanish-American Wars. So we're going way back.
Wow.
And at the time, media was just as scurrilous and controversial as you could imagine any the most controversial podcast host being today, right? So you had all these different media barons who had their newspapers in New York, who were all catering to their different audiences and putting their spin on things. But they couldn't all afford to send journalists down to cover the war. So they said, well, what if we all pool together, we send one person? But they've all got different takes on what's happening in that war.
Okay.
So we've got to say, well, this person can only send back facts then. And then we'd all put our own spin on them afterwards. And this was almost a new model.
That's interesting, yeah. We always think everything's brand new, don't we? We always think, oh, this has never happened before in history. But if you trace it far enough back,
well,
fake news has been around for hundreds of years.
News was full of bias and gossip for almost all of human history. And, it's always been serving an end. And when you look at even, there's a history of news going back a couple of thousand years to Rome, but a lot of that was people just criticizing each other and, plastering walls with lists of why Caesar is terrible or something like that. And when you read even newspapers from a couple of hundred years ago, they're very florid and very over the top. Read any 19th century English newspaper, it's not a set of statements of fact. But what the AP then brought in was, well, if we're going to keep both, imagine keeping the Guardian, the Daily Mail, the BBC, the Sun, all those guys happy, and they've all got maybe different takes on things. Well, you really can. You got to pare things back to the facts. And that's hard for people because we perceive things first, and we perceive them with our identities, and we perceive them with
Everyone's got a bias. We all have biases. We've overt and subvert, we've one's covert and overt, we all have biases just from being human.
It's really hard to see them, right? Because we're in the driver's seat ourselves. We can't see.
And we all think we're perfect, right? We all think, I'd never fall for something like that. I'd never believe that fake news. But we all have biases, and we want to believe it. That's the thing.
And we, I suppose, in the media environment, we all think we're great media critics as well, right? But what we, where are we today? We're at a time where we're getting a lot of our news starting on social media. And I think especially young people. So we look at surveys of how news consumption is going today. And I think it's 82% of people, primary source of news would be social media. It's distributed. A few years ago, that would have been just Facebook and Twitter. Today, it's a mixture of X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube.
And there's news influencers often as intermediaries, people who are more trusted even than sometimes news outlets themselves.
There's a UK guy blowing up on TikTok now. He's very good, to be fair to him, but he's a news influencer.
Yeah, it's a new category.
It's wild, and it's actually very important. I look at him and go, "You're doing a pretty good job," because he's very kind of like he's very entertaining, but he doesn't go over the top.
Yeah,
he tells them that you will not believe what's happened in America. Like that, like he's appealing to a certain demographic.
Yeah,
but he does get to the point. He does give the truth, and he does give like the facts, which is tying this together in real time. As you talk about it, the Associated Press and things like that, it is interesting to see the models just tweaking.
Yeah,
what's old is new again, right?
And people still need the AP. We need facts to enter this ecosystem.
It's interesting to see them live check the presidential debates.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
It's funny when these things that happen in the US late in the day and you wake up the next morning and you're like, right, how am I going to unpack the pile of bias about this without having to watch the thing for an hour and a half?
You don't want to do that. You want the
happened?
3 key things. What really happened?
And, Fox News will probably pick out some moments that make Vance look great.
Yeah.
And the New York Times will have its take. And I'm like, okay, the hard work.
Who is the time? Like, I read a couple of different sources, but like, you don't really have the time to read 3 different sources all the time. At the weekend, on a Sunday, I'll sit down, I'll go through 3 different papers and I'll collate it all in my head. But like you said, there's going to be 3 different takes. And like, when you talk back to the recent presidential election, all that people remember is they're eating the pets.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
That was all that got taken away from that whole debate.
Yeah. Eating the pets. It's that's the great power of Trump as well, is through his kind of weird misspeaking and bizarre ideas, he just yanks people's attention.
He cuts through the noise. You talked about signal and noise. It's such a beautiful phrase. This cutting through the signal, or cutting through the noise to get to the signal. That's what he does with these outlandish statements, and he can cover up so many things with just one outlandish statement that people listen to. Whether they hate it or love it, they talk about it.
Yeah, they do. And the problem with Trump is such an attention yanker, and people have such strong emotional response to him, that if he wins, we're going to enter a bit of a mono news cycle again for a few years of what did he do today? We'll wake up every morning and be like, right, what did he do yesterday?
Checking Twitter. Twitter will go back, X as we call it now.
Yeah.
X will grow in popularity. There's no doubt X will actually result in growth. I think that might be why Elon's backing him. He knows if he gets back in,
there'll be just that much more
X
angry
is
people
be,
on the internet.
Yeah, because there's not enough of them anyway. Like, it's when you see this better than anybody, right? How do events like that shift the social media cycle and the news cycle? Like, what happens when a major global event happens? Like, what trends do you see emerging quickly?
I suppose with any news event, so we're really interested in how it's spreading, and with any news event, it can start. Sometimes it's something that triggers everyone at once, like when everyone is paying attention to a presidential election and someone says something, and then there's an instant eruption. And the next wave of things could be the cleverest hot takes, the reactions, like AOC says, I can't believe he said that, or Ted Cruz says he's dead right. So you've got this wave of reaction stories. And then the stories that don't all break at once. Like, you may remember controversy around Google's Gemini, when it wasn't generating images of white people, and if you asked it for an image of a pope, you'd get all these different historical figures, and it was a bit of a controversy on X before it got picked up anywhere else. So this was a bit of just something on X for a while, and we look at our data, we can see where something is picking up steam. When something gets a certain amount of steam on social media, it's guaranteed that journalists will pick it up, and we know that because the journalists are using our platform. Like, the AP is a client of ours, the New York Times, BBC, most top tier media are paying attention. They want to know what's going on social. They see something kick off. At some point, they're going to be reporting on it. And then people are going to start sharing and engaging those news reports. So something can start on social, gets picked up in the media. People share the news reports, both web links to a New York Times story. If the story gets covered by the New York Times' TikTok or Instagram page, then that starts getting shares and engagement. then that kicks off a wave of reactions and celebrity reactions.
Okay, so you've multiple layers it goes through. So starts kind of like niche and then jumps mainstream through the media and then gets a second wave when people start reacting to the initial story.
Yeah. And then people might start discussing it in threads on Reddit. Someone might have something funny that they say there that might get picked up by an influencer or by a journalist. So you get this continuous wave of people continuing this conversation that kind of jumps from platform to platform. And that's what we're really zeroed in on, trying to make all of that evident, make it possible to just reveal all of that. Because otherwise it's a black box.
Yeah.
Like we're all just individually by ourselves encountering these things in our phones. Maybe we can encounter that a few hours in. It's a reaction to a reaction, you know.
That's where I often find it. Like it's very rarely is the original thing, because I try to spend as little as time as possible on social media. But then you're seeing the reaction as it builds up steam. People you know in your network have kind of gone, oh my God, look at this. This is crazy. And they give their hot take. And that is often where I first encounter something.
And I think that's true for a lot of us these days, and where that might be, it's so experienced as a consumer. But if you're a professional, if you're a journalist, or if you're in charge of communications at a company that's been pulled into this,
Too late.
That's not enough. You need the God's eye view of how this is spreading, where it's happening, who are the influencers of it, which bits of the narrative are taking hold. Another fun one we were looking at is the Justin Timberlake arrest. So he got arrested for DUI in the Hamptons over the summer, and you know, there's the moment.
I didn't even hear that. There you go.
So he got arrested, but it's, as a news event, it's interesting to unpack where the engagement happens and how it spreads. You see TMZ pick it up, you see people pick it up. A lot of the engagement then happens on their social accounts, not necessarily people reading it on the website.
Okay.
And then you get this next wave of engagement might come when his mugshot is released. You know, in the US, you get that mugshot moment, right? Yeah. So that's, everyone's waiting for that.
That's a media moment in itself, right?
That's a media moment. People are sharing that, saying, oh, he looks older, oh, he looks young. You know, this.
Here's what he really looks like without all the photoshopping, and it's wild.
And then the next story is, oh, you know, people start listening to Justin Timberlake or whatever music on Spotify, and then that turns into a story.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Britney Spears starts trending again, and then that turns into a story. So you get the
ripple effect.
This ripple effect around a news story. And for us as consumers, we all get a little bit of that. But what we know, the professionals involved, people in comms, people in media, they want to be able to see all of that playing out and catch the big things when they're still small, whether for offensive or defensive reasons.
So they can build kind of like a reaction or like a strategy for their client or for their company or whatever. What platforms are, popular is kind of too basic a word here, but like, where are you seeing things break first now? Is it still X, or is it completely fragmented?
It really depends on the type of news story. A lot of things are still broken by journalists, and, you know, journalists still break news. Spokespeople for political parties call them with a story. But it quickly then picks up its second life on social media as people start to refract it and react to it. Some stories that break on social can be an event, like, you know, if a tram catches fire, someone's going to have their phone out, right? And that might be going viral before a single journalist has started typing a word or started reacting to it. Most famous example early in that was the miracle on the Hudson, right? When Captain Sully landed the passenger jet into the Hudson River, and there was all this user-generated footage at the time. And that still happens a lot, and being able to get that UGC is part of the world of media today. Which platform, I suppose, for that kind of stuff, it's which platform people are using the most. And I think today, if people were to see a plane landing on the Hudson, it's going to end up on TikTok or Instagram first. A lot of that video and image content is probably there.
Has video really become the default platform, or default medium, I should say?
It has grown a lot, and the platforms are vying for position in video. You've got a business-oriented audience, right? And to the extent they want to build audience, they're probably seeing when they open LinkedIn, there's vertical video in LinkedIn. It's getting pushed. I've made some videos on LinkedIn. They get incredible reach.
And
compared
organic
to-
reach as well, which is
Yeah.
key for business. Yeah, our business audience listening. Like, and I say this all the time. I do like a monthly recap. I'm actually going to post it today.
Mm-hmm.
I reveal everything that happened for me in September and the previous month, I should say. And it always gets great traction because people are always looking for those insights.
Yeah.
I always say, this is how many downloads I got, this is how many videos impressions I got, this is the platform that kicked off last month. Like this month I'll be talking about kind of like September and August, and like Instagram just went wild. I told you about it already, about like this random book recommendation from Professor Stephen Kinsella, economic writing, and like it changes a lot. But video is without a doubt. So we're sitting here in a professional studio. Ben, my videographer, is sitting right beside us. Like 4 or 5 years ago, that wouldn't be the case. We'd
Yeah.
have been doing this just audio only. But without video now, you're doing nothing. You're going nowhere. The discoverability of podcasts has to be video now.
It has to be driven by video. It does. Video is still, it's for absorbing certain kinds of information, graphs, visuals, and writing, of course, text is better. And not everyone's got earbuds in all the time. People are still reading things. But yeah, video is totally ascendant. And I think that trend line hasn't slowed, what I'd say so far. I don't know when it peaks, what the equilibrium is between video and text in the future. But right now, the trend line is steep up for video.
So let's talk a little bit more about Newswhip. So how did this even come about? Like, how did you even start this? Take me back to the origin.
Oh, I suppose, so going back to the origin of Newswhip, it was the wonderful position of being completely stuck and needing to take a step forward, because I'd prior to founding Newswhip, I'd been working in big law in the US. So that was, spent about 5 years in big Manhattan law firm as a litigator, working on, I suppose, antitrust cases and international arbitrations, which is often big companies suing each other, energy companies and nation states in conflict, things like that. Very interesting stuff, but I wasn't enjoying the day-to-day of it a lot. It really just meant 12-hour days in the office,
Right.
writing stuff, researching stuff, and didn't see that as how I wanted to spend the rest of my life. And I was really interested in news and media, and I saw the emergence of Gawker, the Huffington Post, BuzzFeed, and others at the time, and I said, let's go do this in Europe. So originally I moved back to do that in Europe, but it was a total... I was able to build some audience, and I hired some really good journalists to work with me, but it was really heartbreaking to put news on the internet every day, see it get some traffic, and then fall to zero, and you got to start again the next day. And I got absolutely fascinated with how we were getting audience, and that a lot of that was through social. This is going back to like 2010, maybe into 2011, and at that time, Facebook and Twitter were just kicking off as big traffic drivers. And there was no native content. There was no images worth speaking of. It was people going straight to links. So you got great traffic on your website. And so this is interesting, and saw that you could get all of the data on which articles. If you pulled in all of the articles from news websites, you could see by querying social network APIs which ones were getting the traffic. So you could get this incredible.
So you were
real-time-
reverse engineering other people's stuff to see what was working.
Yeah, or you could see in real time which, you could put in all of Irish media, and you could quickly see which stuff was spreading the fastest if you just kept pinging the social networks. Okay, this article has got 200 shares at 2 p.m. and at 2:10 p.m. it's got 300 shares. So it's spreading at this rate. And if you graph it against all the other articles, you can see it's up on top. So then I loved this idea, and I said, there's something to this. And I couldn't write a line of code. So I teamed up with Andrew Mullaney, who became co-founder of Newswhip, and we said, he loved the idea too. We weren't quite sure what business it was. I knew we were separating the signal from noise in a valuable way, but we said, let's go build this. And we just about managed to get a spot on the NDRC launchpad, and off we went.
I love that though, because that you symbolize everything that this podcast is about. It's called the entrepreneur experiment, because that's what business is, right?
Yeah.
There's too many kind of like fake things on social media about like these gurus that say this is the plan, this is the way it goes, make this plan, you'll be in business, 6 months you'll be like this. Whereas in reality, 99.9% of the people I talk to are exactly like you. We were doing this thing, and then we tried doing this other thing, and then we tried this, and actually solving this other problem, we figured out what our business was.
That's exactly it. Like, we were not following the lean startup methodology. We didn't like talk to a bunch of people who we thought might have a problem and develop a solution. We were like, this is a really cool technical opportunity available here. If we get very good at querying all these APIs and pulling this data in, we get this incredible signal. So
well, you're riding the wave.
business.
You're not trying to create it. Like, too many people are paddling out trying to create waves, when in reality, you're facing the other way going, right, there's a big wave coming. Not sure where it's going to take us, but it's going to take us somewhere, and it's quicker than if we're just paddling ourselves out into the middle of the ocean.
Oh yeah, we're becoming a node in the system. We're leveraging all of this intent data, the intent data of millions, hundreds of millions, and eventually billions of people in what they're sharing and engaging with, and turning that into a real-time insight.
What was that transition like? Because that's often the point that's hardest for founders, to let go of one branch to swing to the next. How did you know to do that?
I could just see it was a heartbreaking path ahead. Selling ads against content was very quickly clear. I think it's really good in life sometimes when you don't have other options. Like, sometimes I talk to people who are considering doing a business and they're playing with it a bit on the side, and I think there's inevitably a lot of iterating and a lot of hard work at the start, and it's very hard to do that as a hobby. I think you've got to go at it all in to really get something going and a bit of momentum. So it's great to not have other options and to just say, okay, I'm going to make this work.
Why did you become a founder?
I value self-determination, doing my own thing, and I happened upon this interesting problem. I don't know that in every parallel universe I'm a founder.
Interesting. Think you might still be sitting in Manhattan living that version of your Suits life?
I became a lawyer because I like writing.
Okay, interesting.
So there's probably
more
all
lucrative
kinds
than a journalist anyway, definitely.
of parallel universes. Like, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a novelist.
Okay.
But at some point along the way, I learned you can make money for yourself. I did, because I liked writing as a transition year project, I did a free local newspaper. I kind of founded as much as a 15-year-old can, which basically means selling enough ads to pay for your printing costs, a little local newspaper.
That's cool. Where was this?
In Castletroy in Limerick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I went to UL actually. Yeah.
Oh, did you? Very good. I also, for a couple of years, rather than get a summer job, when I was, I went to UL, dropped out. I lasted all of 3 months in mechanical engineering.
Oh yeah, I had a few people that did that tough course.
That is a very tough course.
Yeah.
And when you've just come out of the leaving cert and you're like, yay, college. And you're like, here's a 40-hour week. Oh, and by the way, you're going to do 2 years of chemistry in your first semester. So it was too much for me, actually. I think, the leaving cert was a bit of a pressure cooker, and to jump straight into mech eng was a bit much. But I did a minor, which is great in UL that they do that. One of my modules was law, so principles of law, and I thought, this is really interesting. What a crazy old system the common law system is. It's all based on precedents, which are broadly reasoning structure by analogy that establishes different principles that are supposed to lock in how decisions are made in the future. And I got really interested in it, so I dropped out, went to France for a while, came back and started law in Trinity. But then I didn't particularly like having to get a summer job, but wanted some kind of money. So I knew the people from the printing press and knew how to get something done. So in the summer, for 2 summers, I came back to Limerick and created an events guide for UL students, for freshers, targeting freshers, to put into the freshers packs.
Good idea. Yeah.
Went around to every nightclub and pub and business in Castletroy and in Limerick to sell ads. Wrote under various pen names all of the articles.
We have a staff of 5.
We used to, when I did the newspaper in transition, I even had horoscopes, which were, I still remember the name of my pen name for that was Laura Duval.
You're telling me horoscopes aren't real?
So I think I'd become comfortable.
Laura Duval is brilliant.
it's a really good thing to learn, is that you can just make money for yourself without having to have someone pay you, like to have a job. And
It's
to
that
have
great unlock. That first few quid you make, you're like, wait,
Yeah,
this is mad.
it is. And then you can see all these new pathways that aren't there if it's only about getting a paycheck. So I was fortunate, I suppose, that I had that I knew that had worked when I was a student. So when I was a few years into the law, getting a bit disillusioned, I thought, okay, well, I guess I can just do that again.
Yeah, it's funny. Like that's why I love chatting to people like you, because there's all like this. There's so much noise and hype around new business and AI. I know we talked about AI, and AI is great, but it's all based on old models. It's all based on stuff that's been around for hundreds of years. Advertising, media. I did the exact same as you. I did an advertising service in transition year. Went around local businesses, sold them like it was like having a web page back then was like black magic. It was like the dark arts. We went around going, we'll put you on the internet. Nina Business Advertising actually sold it to every business in the town.
Oh, well done.
We made what was a fortune then, like a couple of grand. And like, this is like the most money in the world. And that was kind of the moment, I think, where I was like, okay. And I got a part-time job in a phone shop, and those two things together, I was like, right, this is the way. Yeah. I never knew that was even possible. I never even considered that as an option before. Ironically, like you, I wanted to work in journalism. I went back and did a master's in journalism. And there was a moment, and you've touched on some of the issues already, there was a moment where I was sitting in a courtroom recovering this case, and I was like, there's no way media will be able to report this stuff as accurately as like all the stuff that was happening around the city at that time. You'd get a call going, oh, you need to go over there now to cover this, you need to go over there. I was like, smartphones were coming out, the first cameras were arriving. I was like, this is done. This old model of like having hundreds of journalists and photographers and media teams is done. Like, people are going to be capturing this stuff. I was just, the first kind of couple of viral things were starting to happen on Twitter, and I was like, this is the future. Like, media is in big trouble here.
I mean, it's changed a lot. There's still a model there. It's been very painful finding the model, but there's still, it can't be just influencers and people with their phones out, right? We need
professionals. I love the romanticism of it as well. I love the journalism, the notions of journalism, and I think there's still a massive. And I'm bullish on curation. That's what I said to you. I'm very, very bullish on curation and the validation and the proof, because without that in the world, we spin off into a different orbit. Like, we live in a Trump world of just say whatever you want. Yeah, say whatever. It doesn't matter. It's the truth now. Paul said it's true. Yeah. Okay, off we go.
Like the phrase you had there, the notions of journalism. We're kind of doomed without the notions of journalism. We do need people to be committed to trying to report the facts. And even if you might roll your eyes and say, oh, well, that's what you'd say, or that's your bit of bias, that commitment to parsing out what's really happening and giving that to people more or less as it is we do need that.
I really like reading The Currency, because I think it's the best of journalism mixed with the new model, like those long reads. Yeah. I love, like, there was a read up there a couple of weeks ago in the press up group. I think it was 25 minutes long. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I sat there and I read the whole thing. I was putting my daughter to sleep, ironically, at the same time. So I was like one hand, I was just like reading it as she was like dropped off here. But like, I spent 25 minutes reading it, and it was superb. Like, the forensic detail they went into was
bananas. Yeah.
Crazy. Like, if you got KPMG to do that, it'd cost you hundreds of grand. Yeah. It was unbelievable. What Tom and Ian have done there is incredible. Like, such a big fan of them. But we need that. Like, we need the likes of The Currency in the world to just say this is what the way things are, especially in business.
Yeah. And to dig in, it's easy to give a hot take. Oh, press up group, oh, they're in trouble. Well, I never liked Wow Burger anyway.
The service is terrible. I went there once and I got a milkshake and it was chocolate, not strawberry.
So no wonder they're in trouble.
But you do hear that. People draw those to a straight line going, I don't think because you got a lukewarm burger once that's the reason. Like, obviously there's some truth in every anecdote, but you do need the kind of like the snapshot of the whole piece. It was unbelievable. Yeah. So I think there is I know we talked about journalism there, we're not burying it completely, but like, I think there's I think we will see the emergence of some new media companies in the next couple of years who kind of merge it all together, because I think some of the traditional companies haven't figured out what that model is.
We are at an interesting inflection point, like the rise of the individuals and influencers and, AI enabled individuals is the thing to watch, I think. Because there was a BuzzFeed wave. There was a lot of social first news publishers and a wave of those in the 2010s. Big cluster would have come out of New York City.
Yeah.
One point I would have been going over to client visits, right? So biggest density of media probably in the world would be in New York City, and you'd be bouncing between BuzzFeed, Mashable, Now This News, which was video first very early. And a lot of them ended up struggling because they were really at the mercy of the algorithms because they didn't have, the audience wasn't owned. It was always on someone else's rails.
It's terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a weakness. But maybe influencers who are, rather than building a news organization, there could be much, much smaller super influencers. And influencers is a terrible word, isn't it? But I suppose
it is. And people are like, oh, you do influencing in business. And I'm like, no. I think of myself as a media company.
Yeah.
And kind of when I reframed that in my head last year, it made a big difference to myself how I approach things. Because I'm very, very bullish on podcasts, obviously, but I'm also very, very bullish on what you spoke about there. Not the cult of personality, but like the trust of one person. I think that's very, very important. And people talk about AI and, AI bots and stuff. I think that's only going to drive the importance of people going, okay, I know Paul. Yeah. I trust Paul. He's put stuff out for the last 4 or 5 years. I listen to Gary's pod. He's put stuff out for the last 5 years. I know where he stands on things.
Yeah.
So they know what they're going to get here. And I think I'm bullish on two things: the individual media company and long form content. They're the two things. Like short form drives. We talked about this already. Short form drives my podcast growth, but long form is where the value is. Sitting down to you with an hour to go, right, let's get a really in-depth understanding of news and media and technology and how they all mesh together.
I think we need a new word here, because influencer conjures up all the wrong images.
I think you're going to sell me like some skinny tea or something.
A mini media company, I suppose a mini media company or something like that might be it, or a individual media company. But there's a new space there, definitely.
I need you to crunch the numbers and come back to me and give me my new title. So you've been on a journey, right? You've been on a very, very long journey, because media is like, it's in the very hard pile, right? It's in the challenging pile. How have you stayed going?
It's been hard work to keep our company going and growing. And I suppose the important things on the inside, we've got a really fantastic team and really good, interesting problems to work on. So we're ingesting the world's media from many different places. It presents infrastructure challenges. It presents interesting design challenges. We have fun, interesting problem to work on. We have really strong internal culture of collaboration and support. And we, at all times, even when we've gone through tougher times, we've been working with some of the most important companies in the world. Like our clients are, again, the New York Times, Google, Meta, Coca-Cola, companies like this, which are play important role, and many fact checkers and others. So the hard things for us would be media not having much money, right? So we're able to show you what's trending in the world, to give journalists the keys, this God's eye view, but can they pay for that?
And enough? Can they pay enough?
Can they pay enough?
Pay something, but enough to power such an important company.
And then you say, okay, there's a natural limiting factor on where we can go as a business. We either go very low price and try and, can we supply regional publishers in Malaysia on, what can they spend? Or do we say, what is the next market who values this? And thankfully, having built an initial market in media and a user base there, but then running into the economic challenges and free tools from the platforms and things like that we needed to contend with, we said the next wave here is PR and comms. And this is, the early adopters there are the people in agencies like Edelman and BCW. And what they do, and Fleischman Hillard, what they do is they want to be ahead of their clients, tell them, what's happening. Is this a crisis or not?
The last thing you want is your client ringing you going, what's happening here? And you're like, I'll find out.
Well, but they get that call, right? And they've got the Newswhip dashboard open. They're able to pop it in and be like, well, here's exactly what's happening.
We've been running the analysis.
And they sound like gods because they can see
that's what you want.
How big it is on a scale. Like, it's okay, here's a negative mention, or someone's angry with me on Twitter. the number one reason why agencies were starting to bring us in and why many of the biggest corporations in the world use us today is there's so much noise. Like if you're a company like Google, there's people accusing you of being woke online. You've got loads of product lines to keep an eye on, everything from Android to Chrome. You've got, issues around privacy. You've got a big reputation build happening in AI, reactions to AI, different kind of legislative challenges. You're probably working with, I don't know how many influencers. There's so much to track. So what is a big deal, and what do we consider to be a big deal that we need to run it up the flagpole or issue a statement or change course in some way?
Yeah.
And how do we keep all of our teams informed about the ongoing developments and what's happening in all these fields that we need to pay attention to today? Like one of the things that's happened with social media is the world's become political in lots of ways it wasn't before. Companies used to just be able to tell you, hey, we're sustainable now, or use the example of an orange juice company, right? We make orange juice. It's great. Buy our orange juice. You distribute the orange juice. It's really easy. And nowadays it's like, where is your orange juice from? Is there child labor in the orange juice? The orange juice is
there
full of sugar.
microplastics in the plastic?
Yeah. Is that a straw on top of your orange juice carton?
It's terrifying. In a way.
There's so much, and there's distribution, your warehouses, there's do you have 20, 30 carbon goals in your orange juice company? You've got to track all of these things. So if you're a global beverage brand, there's so much now you need to keep an eye on that you didn't need to keep an eye on before, because you were just able to broadcast pretty blithely into the world, and now the world is coming back at you and everything is political and your whole supply chain is political.
And mostly good. Like people weren't trying to deceive. Okay, some companies were, but mainly companies are just trying to go, yeah, we make some really nice orange juice.
Yeah, we make orange juice. Buy our orange juice.
Whereas now you see these crazy things blow up so fast on Twitter, and companies have to pull back releases and pull back. There was one last week, I can't even think of it. I remember reading it going, that is so minor and so unfair.
And we're getting to a stage where the smarter companies want to know, is this really a big deal, or is this some activists on Twitter tweaking us? Is this a bit astroturfed? One of the great ways to see that is, well, how big is it? And who specifically is tweeting about this? And is it getting out of an echo chamber? Is it being picked up by the media? If the media is picking it up, is that getting engagement and is that spreading? You're able to get this very thorough real-time view of how that's spreading with Newswhip. And if you've got a big enough reputation surface area and enough little minor fires and flaring issues, flaring issues is a great phrase one of our clients uses.
Flaring issues.
And they want to know, well, how much is it flaring? And
is it an ember or a wildfire?
Yeah. And wildfire is a great analogy. And they want to be able to tell, their bosses are calling them, right? So one of their friends has sent a screenshot to the phone of the angry tweet. And they want to be able to say, well, this is a big deal and we need to do something. Or 9 times out of 10, this is pretty localized. We can see how big it is. We'll call you if anything changes. They set up an alert in Newswhip or some way of tracking that. And then everyone gets back to work. And confident that this isn't going to tank the company. And oftentimes by reacting, you might in fact create a day 2 story. And we've seen a lot of examples of that. And people who work in comms have good instincts actually about whether to react a lot of the time, but they're probably giving way to pressure from others. But if they've got data and insights that they can bring and say, look, here's why I think we shouldn't react, and look, this is only 10% of that thing from last week, then people feel much more okay with letting things ride for a while, or just replying directly to critics rather than doing something bigger.
I used to ignore it for so long because I put out a business podcast and it's 99% positive. We try to do good stories here. We try talk about founder stories and lessons, and you still get people hating on every single one. And I used to ignore it. Now I'm like, nope, I'm going to engage and go, yep, here we go. There's the actual story. Yeah. Here's what's actually happening. Because I had someone have a snipe yesterday about something. I was like, yeah, here it is. Look, this is it. This is what it was 2 weeks ago. This is what it'll be in 2 weeks' time. Just facts. You just try, take emotion out of it and just reply with facts and not get personally involved. So looking ahead then for Newswhip, what's coming down the tracks? What are you most excited about?
I think what we're on the product side, we've built a an incredible infrastructure to pull in what's happening in the world. Like we'd say we're revealing the stories that are shaping the world, and we're doing it as it happens. And one of the downstream problems, though, is that's a lot of stuff, right? Even if you're separating the signal from noise, you're doing it across a lot of platforms. And I think with AI, we're seeing a lot of potential for summarization and getting to the so what, and the potential for bringing in monitoring agents and capabilities like that into the platform. So it's very exciting stuff for us in the future. We're also, in the last 12 months, we've got much better at this deep enterprise integration. We've built a lot of features that mean global companies, the information can just flow right into them. Like the days of people logging into a dashboard and just looking at what's happening and making a call based on that, that still happens, but it's smaller and smaller percentage of how we're used. So I'm really excited to see us partnering at a real enterprise global scale with some of the biggest brands in the world and enabling the information to flow to the decision makers where it needs to go.
Right.
So
and when you say flow, what does that mean? Like, what form does that take?
That would be, say, we have the flow has to be through existing channels that they'll have. So it could be MS Teams, email, it could be Slack.
Okay.
It could be populating even a Google Sheet. But usually email is probably the most universal. So we say there's a big energy company we're working with, and they've got a renewables team, and they want to know what's going viral around their brand and renewables and what's the conversation each day. Rather than log into a dashboard, they're getting an email from us which has all of the data on the top and graphs about the last 24 hours. Then it has AI-powered kind of insights. It says, well, here's what's been going on. Here's the top insights from the last 24 hours, the new novel things around your brand and renewables from the last 24 hours, and then links to all of the news stories.
I love that.
So they can go and they can read those stories. And that's 100% automated. We've, created all of the searches up front. Our platform is very good at separating signal from noise. And then large language models are very good at pulling out the insights. And our own design team is great at creating the visuals so people can make sense of it all quickly.
That's so important. I think so many companies miss that part. That's so what? Great. Yeah. Oh, dashboard. Sweet. Another thing I can just stare at and go, what does that mean? The so what? I love that. It's so simple. The so what?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got all the data. You don't need more data. You need more insight.
Yeah.
The world needs more insight, not more data. Like, there's too much data. You can't filter through. You're going, what does that mean? I don't know. Whereas you just want what moves the needle.
Yeah. And we can deliver that to people. And this energy company, they've been working, like media monitoring is very important for them. Energy companies are all worried about their, I suppose, license to operate, say, in the world when there's a lot of criticism and a lot of political issues around energy. And they, they previously either had a media analyst, like someone working for a couple of hours parsing through all of this stuff, which is expensive and might miss things. And in fact, pulling in everything, separating, well, what are the public engaging with, and having that data, and then getting the so what and packaging that up and sending it through is just really transformative for them. It enables a level of media insight that just wasn't economically feasible or even possible before, unless you had armies of media analysts.
Stepping away then from the business more towards your own story. You've been at this coming up on 15 years now. Consistency and stamina. You look very fresh for a man that's run a big company for 15 years. How do you look after yourself? So I like to think of it as brain, body, business. We've kind of touched on the business thing. I want to talk about you a little bit now. How do you look after yourself? Like, how do you look after your mental health and then your body as well?
I suppose mental health wise, I suppose physical and mental I'd see very interlinked. So really when I moved back to Ireland and started Newswhip, I very quickly got into, at about the same time, sea swimming.
Oh, you were ahead of the curve.
I was a little ahead of the curve on that.
You were a trendsetter before it was cool.
Yeah, it was funny. The post-COVID, trying to get parking at the 40-foot is very different to the pre-COVID.
You were one of those ones who were like, newbies.
Yeah. And, well, the other fortunate thing about sea swimming is I've got a really good friend, Niall, and we do it together. So it's great to not just have sea swimming, but to have someone he'd do it with. And we'd egg each other on to do ever more ridiculous swimming feats. And,
right.
we'd be those weirdos who were putting on the swimming hat and the goggles.
So you're actually swimming. You're not like jumping off, then going, oh, and then jump back in for coffee.
We're actually swimming. We're the guys who were like, pointing out across.
You're like that dot on the horizon. Okay, so you got properly into that.
Got properly into that. That's been good for both mental and physical health, because you can be so worried about your KPIs and your metrics, and then you jump into the sea and you feel better. And well, you don't even feel better. You stop thinking about all that stuff you were just thinking about, and you get a big, great reset and recontexting of all the stuff that's going on in your head, because you can be so in your head.
It's noise, signal noise in your head. That's the most important thing to manage. So how else do you manage that? So you've got the sea swimming that kind of gives you a kind of a reset. What else do you do?
I do meditate a bit, and I've even gone for some more recently. I went for my first silent retreat for 5 days.
Wow. Okay, talk to me about that. That's getting popular.
Yeah, it's I suppose it's a way of improving your relationship with your own mind. Move away from the idea that your thoughts are thinking you, that you're able to...
The inner voice.
Yeah, see the inner voice and not just be the inner voice as well. Now we're going deep.
No, I like that. I work with Shane Craddock a lot. He's a performance coach, and he talks about the inner voice a lot.
Yeah.
And to be honest, until I worked with him, I never even thought about the inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
It was just there. That was just how I thought. Whereas now I'm like, no, you actually control it yourself.
Yeah.
Don't just let it like run off in a tangent.
The inner voice, like most people probably who start businesses, will probably have a lot of inner voice chiding them to do more all the time. And one of the most difficult things about it is there's always ways it could be more optimal. And you can run up and down every bit of the business. There's some little design tweaks, some starting point, marketing copy, how we're working, could we ship something faster? There's a gazillion things that you could be optimizing. And, you'll wear yourself out and your team out if you constantly do that. So you need good principles of what's important and separating that out. But it's very hard to turn off the optimizer and to not be in constant optimization mode. So I think exercise, I also run a bit, do a little bit of weights training as well, like just having a mixture of things as well as the swimming and running. Cardio for me is mainly mental health.
Yeah.
And
it's time with yourself, isn't it? I used to hate running, and I've got into a lot in the last kind of like 18 months. It's time with yourself. Just not on your phone.
Do you run with headphones?
Yeah.
Okay, I mind the headphones.
Are you one of those psychopaths that run, just run?
I just run.
Raw dog on the run.
It's the only way.
Yeah, maybe that's my next step.
So I roll my eyes at all the headphone wearing runners, because I can hear them coming with their slapping feet, because they're not aware of their gait.
Oh, interesting.
They're listening to...
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Okay, yeah. A lot of people do listen to it. I'm like, how do you listen to a podcast and run? But now I've got into books.
Yeah.
If I'm doing longer runs, if I'm doing 10, 15K, I'll listen to a book because I don't want to think about running.
Running is a very boring thing to think about. I have to admit that. Yeah.
Okay. I'll try a couple just without the headphones, just listen to my stride, get fully into it. How do you decide what's important? Because you said something very interesting there. You could be optimizing forever, and that's a really, really powerful point for a lot of entrepreneurs. Sometimes we can major in the minor. Mm-hmm. So how do you decide what's important?
Well, we have our goals of what we want to build and which markets we want to penetrate, like who are the people who we want to reach. And it's really important that we have that bit of the business running well, that we're good at identifying who we want to reach and we're good at reaching them. And, you can let a lot of other things fall away if you're able to make sure that you're getting out there to the right people and building awareness of your company on the kind of marketing and sales side. Because I think we have a really compelling product, and one of the hardest things to learn is how hard it is to bring something, no matter how compelling it is, to market and earn a little space in people's minds. So that's something, that we'd say this is important just because self-evident we can't grow without this. And I think internally we also avoid taking for granted what's already working. Like, we have a really good team and culture. We still obsess about, another weird phrase is employee satisfaction, right? Because we're not all here to be satisfied exactly. We should all feel a little uncomfortable sometimes, but how engaged are we with our work?
how positively we're feeling towards it. Are we feeling enabled to do our work across the team? So you're paying attention to the things that are working as well. And that's important to make sure the things that are working keep working.
That's a really powerful point, because we're always looking for the new, especially now. Oh, you're not doing this newfangled thing. And I was like, no, because 90% of our business is this. Like, that's a really important point. You can always be looking around the corner, whereas instead you should be going, what's working? Let's do more of that as well.
Yeah.
How do you plan yourself personally? How do you keep your days, weeks, months in order?
I think that setting priorities is critical, again, because there's kind of endless stuff you could be doing. Mixture of priorities and then little rules and little heuristics. So the priorities are coming from who are we trying to reach, what market, what are we trying to build, what are we trying to get done over the next year or two. And I have literally, I'm working off a list, like I work off a Google page, what do you call it? And I have those up on top. So I'm reminding myself of those as soon as I open this.
Okay, so you keep that front of mind always.
Yeah. I need a better workflow tool. I'm kind of been thinking about that a bit lately, but have what's top of mind, and then also have some operating principles like, am I talking to our clients regularly? Because if you just focus on those, but you're not talking to clients and you're not talking to users, you quickly lose touch with things and you end up isolated and or not really understanding the interface of your company with its users and the world outside. So you have a few operating principles like that I've learned. So priorities and good operating principles are probably the mix.
I like that. I have a principles doc.
Have you?
I have a principles doc, has like about 10 principles on it, and I keep referring back to it.
What's your weirdest principle?
It's not weird, but it's the one I live by, and it's like, early is on time is late.
That's a great one.
I just learned that in my previous business. We're in a hospitality, and I was like, because even this morning I was coming in from Wicklow, and the traffic can be absolutely chronic. So I was like, right, I just need to embed that. But I keep that principles doc, so it's interesting.
Hopefully, you're listening to the pod and you're feeling inspired. Maybe you want to do new things in your own business, or maybe you have that brilliant idea you've always wanted to bring a little bit further and see if it works. So why not right now? You listen to the majority of the guests in this show, and they've been helped by the local enterprise office at some stage in the journey. They have something for everybody. Whether you have that idea you want to develop, you want to get your products to new markets, you want to innovate your existing products, or you want to expand staff and premises, they have the supports to help. So why not today? If you want to start up or grow your business, then contact your local enterprise office today.
Right, we got to get through our rapid fire round. What book should every entrepreneur read?
I think every entrepreneur is going to face a lot of psychological challenges, and so while there's a lot of books about operating a company, I think something that's good for your mental health is probably the right place to start. And I would say The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. And
first time it's been recommended, The Road Less Traveled.
Yeah. It's a great reminder that fundamentally, and it's a good thing, it's a fine thing, but life is hard. And a lot of what's hard about life is when we wish it was easy or we feel entitled to it being easy. But if the starting point is, it's kind of hard to get stuff done and to feel okay about that, it's a very good book for establishing that.
I like that. It's a powerful message. What's something you had to learn the hard way?
I think it was very hard for me to learn that the good product doesn't win. I just thought you build something cool and you put it on the internet. Didn't realize you had to hire sales and marketing and then spend decades telling your story to the market.
I think we all have to learn that. I think I've learned that all the time.
Yeah.
No, it should be. We talked about like some clips go viral, some don't, and you're like, sometimes I'm putting something up and I'm like, this is a banger. This has got everything. It's got the hook. It's got a bit of controversy. People are going to love it or hate it. Nothing. Because like you said earlier, you're at the mercy of the algorithms. What have you sacrificed to achieve your success?
I've sacrificed a lot of attention. Like I said, I'm in constant optimizing and thinking about the business mode. So, or near constant. Thank God for meditation, my family, swimming, friends. But it takes a lot of attention. So you got to accept you're going to give this thing a lot of attention. I've had to sacrifice a lot of attention.
What would you do today if I give you 10 million euro? I
think I would worry less about downside. We would definitely keep going because we have fantastic timing, incredible thing we're building and we've built so far. But I might really be swinging for the fences that little bit more, because if you're 10 million, you're a little less worried about downside.
Interesting. I'm going to give you €1 million. You can only invest it in one person or one company. Who?
I'm going to cheat. I want to invest in an index fund of Irish SaaS businesses.
That's a massive cheat. That's the exact
massive.
opposite of the question.
That is, yeah.
An index fund of Irish SaaS. Peter Coppinger in Teamwork, he was like, what was this? Make SaaS great again. That's his thing, is Irish SaaS.
Yeah, it's like, I know some of the CEOs like Peter. There's, you've had Ronan Percival from Forest on. There's Fergal at Visible Thread, Fidelma at Payslip. You've got the guys at Bright Flag. There's some really great SaaS businesses, not quite under the radar, but they're there. And I'd love a little index fund of those.
Right, me and you are going to get this. We're going to partner up. We're going to create an Irish index fund for SaaS. DM us if you want to get involved. If you're starting from zero in 2024, what business would you build?
I think that it'd be very hard to get into social media analytics now. The barriers to entry are very high, and building relationships with social networks is expensive and difficult work. So I wouldn't get into our business now. I think AI-enabled creativity is going to be a lot of fun over the next while. So if I was starting with zero zip right now, I'd be looking at that.
AI-enabled creativity. I like that. What do you believe that other people would strongly disagree with or find strange?
I think that the natural state of news is gossip, that people like getting news from friends and family, from other people who they trust, like we've said, not necessarily from the same sitting down to read a newspaper every day. And that news is tending back that way again.
What's been your worst investment?
I struggle with my worst investment because I've been all in on Newswhip, so I don't have a whole lot of investments. Probably the worst investment is when I go clothes shopping in a hurry and I compromise.
Okay.
And I buy clothes I'll never wear again.
You're very well turned out today. I got to say, I was admiring your zippy there earlier. I was like, that's a bloody
I love a good zippy. I don't have any jumpers that don't have a zip.
What's been your best investment then?
I think best investment has been in my marriage, I would say. There's no more important investment than partnering up the right way and with someone who you're going to be able to build something with. So we haven't talked a lot about that today, but best investment is definitely all of the time and attention to put into the family and relationships.
Perfect. I'll clip that for you as well, and you can
send that
on. What's your final piece of advice for every entrepreneur listening?
I think to keep going and to keep learning. Like, it's just tough it out. It's kind of what we have to do, but if you can tough it out with curiosity about the problem, with curiosity about why you find the problem frustrating, it's much healthier. And so it's pairing up that keep going with curiosity and problem solving.
Curiosity is key. People always ask, like, oh, what traits do all the good people you have talked about? I was like, they all have curiosity. Mm-hmm. They're naturally curious. They're asking questions about the podcast. Why do you do this? What clips work? What platforms work? Like, they're just curious and have a bit of fun as well. They're curious and they're having the fun through it. Like you with the business, like you're clearly in love with the business and clearly in love with media. Where can people learn more about Newswhip and yourself?
I'd ask people to go to newswhip.com, subscribe to our newsletter, follow us, Newswhip on LinkedIn, or follow or connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm on Twitter, but I'm not doing a whole lot these days on X. So if you're interested in media and insights, I'd say our LinkedIn page and our newsletters are the best way to keep up.
Perfect. Paul, thank you so much for an incredible conversation.
Thanks so much, Gary.